Hi everyone, this is Korosh Erfani. I would like to present to you a little discussion regarding Western civilization and ethics. You know, after the genocide in Gaza, starting from October 7, 2023, we could know the nature of the Israeli government and the Zionism, and that was for sure. But also, we had opportunity to know much better about the deep nature and character of the Western countries. Right? We saw how almost all the Western countries started to support almost unconditionally the genocide in Gaza for 2 years, providing whatever was necessary to commit this genocide. So this was very revealing. This exposed effectively what Western is. Let's think about the modern West as a civilization that defined itself for a long time, for centuries, as a kind of belief in a supremacy, right? As if they had a superiority, racial superiority or cultural superiority or political one over the other nations, over other countries, cultures, societies, and so on. So this feeling of supremacy was justified by a different language that the pure racist, supremacist, ethnocentrist language. What was the language that was used? The language of freedom, civilization, culture, human rights, democracy, the things like that, completely different from what we know right now. So let's say that with this worldview, they started to see themselves, the different Western countries, they saw themselves as an entity that is in the forefront, right? As the leadership of civilizations, right? They thought that we have a responsibility, and this responsibility is not only leading ourselves to a destiny, but also the other countries, other civilization, other culture, the world, actually. We have the responsibility to bring the world to the same destiny, as if they had a kind of mandate, order, directive, command, a command coming from somewhere, maybe a divine source. That was the idea of going through all the continents, finding other nations, our territories, and trying to dominate them. And this domination was presented not only in terms of colonialism, military expansion, economic exploitation, and so on. No, it was based on a discourse of moral, a narrative of ethics, goodness, rightness, So that was this moral foundation that gave to the Western countries the idea of justifying their global expansion. So they said that it's not for conquest, it's not for your territory and everything that you have, like oil, gas, gold. No, it's for liberation. It's just for your liberation. We have already liberation, so we want to give to you. So, under this justification, they started to topple, the governments, to destroy completely the empires, to eliminate the leaders and figures, to disintegrate nations, and everything with the armies. Can you imagine ethical mission with armies? So they deployed the armies, which means military, brutal, violent force, everywhere across the globe. And everywhere in the name of what? In the name of delivering liberation, freedom, culture, ethics, and everything to the world. Interesting, huh? So, not only they did that, but also they used this belief system that we are superior and we have a mission. We have the mission to civilize, other people who are not really civilized or not enough civilized, and we have to civilize them, right? So they use this belief to make their own nations, their own people, believe that we have something to do in other countries, in other continents. So they justified, if you want, their global expansion for their own people in order to get a kind of domestic agreement, a domestic consensus, right? A national consensus about their colonialism and expansion. So we should know that all this discourse based on morals, ethics, and so on, was not really to be applied, to be used in practice. It was just to be believed. You have to believe that we are there for your freedom, for your liberation. Even though the reality is far from that, it's okay. You have just to believe it. So the objective was not to deliver that, to deliver any values, to deliver freedom, dignity or whatsoever, just to create a kind of discourse according to which we are there, we will be there for that. So that's the idea. The idea of how to justify to our own population, to the Western populations, through the propaganda system, media, mainstream media, the idea of having a mission, having a kind of historical mission over there, which is to civilize other people. So they wanted to manufacture a kind of national consent because they needed the vote of the people. They need the youth, the young people to come as soldiers, and going there and killing the people. So that's why the Western citizens were completely conditioned, right, brainwashed, regarding what was going on in other countries. So that's why they accepted everything. They accepted mass slaughter, genocide, exploitation, planning the coup in other countries, and all of them in the name of peace, in the name of morals, ethics, and so on. So that's why you saw that only a minority of the population in the Western countries has risen against the genocide in Gaza between 2023 and 2025, which is just going on. So we can see that they created a kind of label, a kind of code to be used for doing all these atrocities. The code was, you remember, this code was used by Reagan, by Bush administration, for example. It's called moral necessity. Moral necessity. Also used by French colonial, British colonialism, and so on. Moral necessity, not military necessity, not expansionism, not whatsoever. No, moral necessity. This is the idea. Now, when we see effectively that they invented this kind of formula to frame, what they were doing with the language of liberty, freedom, liberation, law, and so on, we can see that a huge discrepancy between this discourse, the language, and the reality, the dark, gloomy reality. No compatibility, total dissonance, total disagreement between the discourse and the reality. So the idea was, we are going to present a discourse, a narrative, and that is based on this kind of values or vocabulary, law, order, civilization, freedom, liberation, free world, the things like that. But what we are going to do is, in practice, is the systematic destruction, systematic annihilation of every nation that wants to stand up. Every nation that wants to resist to economic extraction, economic exploitation, economic depletion, or to the political subordination, or even to the cultural subjugation. Every nation that resists will be completely destroyed. We saw that in Gaza, we saw that in Syria, we saw that in Lebanon, we saw that in Vietnam before, right? So, from October 2023, something happened, which was that we saw the same government that were telling us and exposing us with a very beautiful discourse of human rights, of freedom, of democracy. We saw that they had to show, after October 2023, to show the real nature, the real face, right? In light of what they did, now we have an idea about what they are with regard to their, historical narrative of freedom and liberation and so on. We saw that they are able to assist the Zionism to starve the people, to kill the people, to genocide people, to bomb the refugee camps. Like what they are doing right now with the American bombs in Gaza, for example, right now. So, from that moment, we can see that there was a kind of crisis. But this crisis was not that the West lost the morality, for example. No, there were never morality. It was never a question of morality. As opposed to what they wanted to present to us, there was never a matter of ethics, morality, liberation, and so on and so on. What was collapsing after October 2023 was the illusion that such a thing ever existed, even, right? That something under the label of morality ever existed. We now know that it was completely fake. It was completely false. All the values they were, maneuvering on was only and only to hide the reality of domination. This discourse, this narrative was only and only an instrument of dominance, taking control of everything over other people and population. So that's why we can see that this narrative now is losing completely its credibility and its legitimacy, and nobody believes in that. And this is the West, the whole Western civilization, that is losing this legitimacy. And the world can see now the real nature of the Western civilization. There is no more curtain, right? There is nothing hidden. Now everything is revealed, everything is exposed, and we can see the contradictions, the blatant contradictions between what they are saying, what they have been saying for centuries, and what they have been really and practically doing. So that's why we have to say this as conclusion. You know, this imperial expansionism, this imperial bloodshed that had been perpetrated for centuries by the Western countries, by the Western forces around the world, in all the 5 continents. It was never a question of deviation from the Western values, from the Western original values. There was not such a thing. It is not a matter of divergence or deviation or deviance or whatsoever. No, it was just question of unmasking, exposing the real nature. And if we realize that, we can have a much more realistic image from the Western countries, Western governments. And that's why when we see the people, like, for example, a part of the Iranians across the world, asking their freedom, asking the freedom of their country. From who? From these Western powers. It's really regrettable. It's really a shame. Why? Because they don't have any idea about the real nature of the Western powers, because they don't pay attention to this huge discrepancy between narrative of freedom, democracy for Iran, for Venezuela, for Cuba, for the whole world, and on the other hand, supporting all the dictatorships across the world, planning the coup against any real elected governments, like the government of Mossadegh in Iran in 1953, for example. So they don't pay attention on this huge divergence between what they said during 2-3 centuries and what they did. We have to pay attention to that. We have to pay attention for the simple reason that if we have still this illusion regarding the West, we will be again and again trapped. We fall again and again in their trap, right? So that's why at a given moment, not only the non-Western countries, non-Western populations, but also the Western populations, the people who are living in these countries, right? Their own citizen. I am talking about the Western citizens. They have to take awareness about this historical reality and about the immorality of what their government, the governments actually have been doing, for centuries. If we have this possibility, this awareness, this consciousness, at a given moment, I am pretty sure that they cannot really create this kind of superfluous conflicts between the nations. This is what the political class is doing, right? Their dominance is grounded on what? On the absence of consciousness by the Western citizens about the reality of what they are doing and the atrocities that they are imposing to the other people and population. So we need really on the grounds of the historical facts, to review what's going on everywhere in any society, Western societies, non-Western societies, to have a better idea about the false aspect of this discourse and this narrative of freedom, liberation, human rights, and so on, so that we can find the real ways, the realistic pathways to link the people to each other, link the nations to each other, so that we can have a kind of not only social solidarity, but global solidarity between the peoples, between the nations of the world. And from that moment, I am pretty sure we will be able to create something completely different from what the governments and the dominant class have been doing to us. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. I encourage you to subscribe to my English channel, which is the Korosh Erfani English on YouTube. I am publishing this kind of video over there, and I hope that I can have your support for that. Thank you very much.